I'll start with my top 5 running backs available in this year's 2024 NFL draft. Now, I'm going to go 5-1. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I didn't feel like there was an obvious guy at number 1. And it speaks to 2 things. One, the depth of the class, but also the fact that I don't think that there's the prized possession out there in the running back class. I don't think we have Bijan Robinson or Jahmyr Gibbs from a year ago. There's not going to be a first-round guy, which is fine because these guys are loaded with talent, and they're going to help somebody win football games this year. You know, whether they're going to be the featured running back in some organization this year or not, these guys can help you win football games. Look at the backs that have come out in recent years. Kyron Williams from Notre Dame, he was a 5th rounder in 2022. He went to the Rams. He's 3rd in rushing this year. James Cook, 2nd rounder to Buffalo in 22. He was 4th in rushing. Kenneth Walker was a 2nd rounder to Seattle. Isaiah Pacheco, for goodness sakes. You go back, Nick Chubb, Derrick Henry, all 2nd rounders. These guys that I'm about to talk about will help organizations. These guys are really, really good players. So let's start with number 5. I'm going to go to Tennessee, which I know makes our incredible producer, Kat, very happy. She's a Vol, and I'm going with a Vol right here. I like Jaylen Wright at number 5. So Jaylen was 2nd team All-SEC. He's the leading rusher for the Vols the last couple of seasons. But what I really love about his game is he's got this incredible home run ability, and his speed jumps off the tape. Now he's testing well, which is great. And it's a feather in your cap. But all it does is solidify what you see on tape. When you turn on the tape, when you watch him run, what you will see is home run ability. Love his speed. In fact, he had 3 touchdowns of over 75 yards. 3. By the way, this is the SEC. This is not, a lesser league. Not to disparage any other leagues, but there is speed on the field in the SEC, and yet this guy can separate and he can still hit home runs. That's incredibly valuable for an NFL team. If you're a team that needs that, he is the guy. Love his jump cut. He's got sticky hands. I think that he can catch the ball well out of the backfield. The one issue that I think Jaylen Wright's going to have to clean up, and I know it's tough because this is something that generally doesn't get cleaned up, but I hope it does for him. He's had the propensity to put the ball on the ground. So he's had some fumble issues in his career, but if he can just hold on to the football, man, this guy, like I said, he's got that home run ability. In fact, when you look at rushes of over 10 yards, 10 or more yards, a quarter of his rushes went for 10 or more yards. It's fast. He can get it done. So I like Jaylen Wright. He's number 5. At number 4, Bucky Irving from Oregon. Bucky is a hell of a player, man. Now, I know he traveled a little bit of a longer road, began his career at Minnesota, but then he had back-to-back 1,000-yard season, first team All-Pac-12 this last season. And what I think is his best trait is his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. Now, he's a great runner. And by the way, all these guys are. You're not going to be in the top 5 running backs in the draft unless you can run the football. So they can all run the football. Are their styles a little bit different? Yes. Are the schematics in which they succeeded a little bit different? Yes. But they've got those traits. So you need things that separate you. And while he's not a huge guy, he led all FBS running backs with 56 receptions in 2023. Look at the NFL right now. Why is Bijan so good? Why is Jahmyr Gibbs so good? Because they can be threats out of the backfield. Why is Christian McCaffrey considered the best position player in the sport? Because he can catch it out of the backfield. So he can do everything that you need between the tackles, which these guys can, but then he can be a threat out of the backfield catching the ball. That's exactly what Bucky can do. I think his size is probably the biggest knock on him, but man, he's sure-handed. For a guy that maybe isn't the biggest guy on the field, he only had 1 fumble in 486 career attempts. So you put that next to, remember last week I was talking about tiebreakers. You're always looking for things and you're like, man, I think I like these guys very similarly. Their evaluation is similar. Maybe not their style, but their evaluation. So you're looking things to break ties. Is it the way that they tested? Is it some attribute that you're going to value more? Well, for me, it's ball security. And the reason that Bucky Irving was ahead of Jaylen Wright is ball security. Jaylen Wright, fumble issues. Bucky Irving didn't. 1 fumble and 486 career carries. All right, let's go to number 3, because this is a guy that I actually think is you're going to think to yourself like, well, he's a little bit older and he's coming off of an injury, so I don't know. But if you actually look at his career, not a lot of carries. You know, as they say, like there's not a lot of there's a lot of tread left on the tires, and that's Jonathon Brooks at Texas. I think Jonathon Brooks is a hell of a player. I really do. And he's of this crowd. I think he's the guy that is most similar to those three that I mentioned. Your Bijan, Jameer, Christian McCaffrey's, in that he's very dynamic running the football, and he is such a threat catching it out of the backfield. And then what you see is like, well, it only happened for 1 year, and now he's coming off of this ACL, which is a bummer, because if he wasn't coming off of that ACL, I genuinely believe he would probably be the top running back in the class. But because of those concerns with your knee, now you've got to mix that into your evaluation. He's a slasher. He's great catching it out of the backfield. He's got home run ability. And then you look up and it was like, oh man, he only had 51 carries before last year. Because there were other guys there, namely Bijan. And so now you look at him and you're like, man, he barely cracked the 200 carry mark. These other guys have 400 or 500 carries. And it's like, in some cases, 600 plus carries. And he barely had 200. Gains yards, knows for the end zone, catches it well, good leader, really smart player. He's going to help somebody out. So he's number 3. At number 2, and again, I would have had Brooks higher than 3 if not for the injury. But at number 2, I'm going Blake Corum from Michigan. Blake tested and performed and worked out incredibly well at the combine. And then his tape speaks for itself. Now, it's the direct opposite view of Jonathon Brooks, because Corum has the 675 carries. Okay, so is that a point of concern? Possibly. And then you start to look at what he does well. And if you put him in the right scheme, this guy is going to succeed. First of all, he is a tremendous leader. I mean, a tremendous leader, a selfless guy. He came back this year. He was really the heart and soul of that Michigan team. And that Michigan team just went 15-0 and won a national championship. And in so many ways, Blake epitomized the personality of, the work ethic of, and the selflessness of the entire team. They took their keys from him. He was the alpha of that team. And so that's the type of guy that you're getting if you put him in your locker room. And then you look at what he does on the field. He's incredibly smooth, okay? And he's got that little glide step towards the line of scrimmage. He was great in gap schemes. He was great in duo schemes. He was great in zone schemes. He catches it really well out of the backfield. So he's a well-rounded back. Now, he's not going to blow you away with catch numbers, but no one's going to blow you away with catch numbers at Michigan because they just don't throw the ball enough. Okay, they don't throw the ball enough for him to get the, 56 catches that Bucky Irving got at Oregon. But boy, when you watch him run the ball, one thing really jumps out, and that's his vision. I think his vision is as good or better than, well, anybody in this draft, certainly, but a lot of guys, even in the NFL. So this scheme I was talking about, this duo scheme, duo basically covers up players, and the offensive line is double teaming the down linemen, and then they're working up to, so the duo blocks working up to the linebackers. Now, it looks a little bit like power because you're blocking down towards the front side, and then that's where the ball goes, but then there's no puller to that side. So, people have said it's kind of like power without the puller. It's a little bit different than that. The bottom line is that the back has to pick the hole. The back has to have the vision there. And if you go back and you watch Penn State, if you go back and you watch Ohio State, if you watch the Alabama game, if you watch the Washington game, what you'll see is that Blake has great vision, and he knocked off huge home runs because one guy would get out of their gap. It happened against Penn State. One guy jumps out of his gap, bam, touchdown run. Happened against Ohio State. One guy gets out of their gap, bam, touchdown run. Then he flashes the 6'5" for Zach Zenter, who had just gotten injured. So, Corum's going to really succeed in the NFL. that vision's going to allow him to succeed. The smooth nature with which he runs, his ability to catch it, and then his leadership in the locker room, all of that is going to play and pay huge dividends for him moving forward. And then my top back is going to be Trey Benson from Florida State. It was really hard for me to get over this size-speed combination that he possesses. He's 6 foot, 216, so almost 220 pounds, and he runs a 4.39. Like, let's go. And Trey and Bucky Irving are going to be linked, because of their paths and the way that they moved around in college football. But I just look at this guy and I think to myself, okay, this guy is going to be a really great professional running back. Second team All-ACC, 6.1 yards per carry over the last couple of years. Ran that 4.39, third fastest for running backs. Began his career at Oregon, which is why Irving and him are going to be kind of tied together. But Benson is a guy that can catch it out of the backfield, but it's his physical attributes. I think that his ceiling is incredibly high. I like his vision. There are times when he can get a little bit upright, which tall, big running backs do generally. And guess what? So does Derrick Henry, but it works for Derrick Henry. And I know that comparing him to Derrick Henry is not what I'm trying to do here, but you get the gist of it. His style is going to play well at the next level. There are a lot of backs, though, that I could have put on this list. Maybe not at the top spot, but again, I even told you, Jonathon Brooks without the ACL was going to be my number one. Moved back to number 3. There are other guys that didn't make my top 5 that could have very easily made my top 5. Marshawn Lloyd from USC. Really loved his season. Braylon Allen. Quietly, guy plays for 3 years at Wisconsin, basically starts from day one as a true freshman and runs for 3,500 yards in college in 35 games. So basically, he was just churning out 100-yard games. That's what he does. Audric Estime, love him on film, didn't love him testing at the combine, but again, a guy that he'll probably find a home in the NFL and probably succeed, and I hope that he does. So it's a deep group without that upper echelon first-round talent that really drove last season with Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs. But these guys, they're going to help people out. It's a good class of running backs.
Thank you for watching the Joel Klatt Show YouTube channel. And if you liked this clip, make sure to like it and subscribe to the channel. And you can stay up to date on all of my college football coverage.